After learning the theme of movie culture for 2 weeks, this week we're going to write a piece of formal writing related to this theme. First of all, let's look into the writing task. You are a committee member of the Film Society in Hong Kong. You have found that fewer people go to cinemas than before. Write a letter to the editor to explain why this is happening and suggest what could be done to increase the number of moviegoers. Gives reasons to support your suggestions. Now we can see that the background of this writing topic is that you've observed that there are fewer people going to the cinema than before. So what you're going to do is you write a letter to the editor, and in this letter to the editor, you're going to do two things. First of all, explain why there is this phenomenon and suggest what could be done to encourage more people to go to the cinemas. So here's a more detailed task analysis. First of all, the text type, as I mentioned, is a letter to the editor. And because in this letter to the editor, we are going to encourage more people to go to the cinema. So the type of writing should be persuasive. That means you're going to persuade people into doing something. And because this letter is going to be read by the general public, so that's why it's a public kind of text, and it should be written in a formal tone. And who are you? You are a committee member of the Film Society in Hong Kong. So that's why you care a lot about the number of moviegoers. And most importantly, in this letter, you are going to do two things. First of all, you explain the reasons why there are fewer moviegoers now than before, and you suggest some solutions to solving the problem. You suggest ways to improve the situations, to encourage more people to go to the cinemas. So what exactly does a letter to the editor look like? Now here I have an example for you. So this letter to the editor is about fast food, okay? So it is written by someone who wants to express his or her concern over the fast food culture to the editor and also the readers of the newspaper. And you can see that in the letter to the editor, you must begin with this, what we call greeting, okay? You must begin by saying something like a dear editor, okay? Sometimes you can also write something like dear sir or madam, but dear editor is way more common. And then you will see that in the first two lines, the writer is actually trying to tell the purpose of writing, because he's trying to give some background information like, oh, he or she is a regular reader, and he or she is trying to express his or her concern over the prevalence of fast food culture. So in the letter to the editor, at the very beginning, you must express the purpose of writing, okay? And because usually when you write a letter to the editor, you're trying to argue about something. So therefore, at the end of the first paragraph, you can see that the writer is trying to state clearly that whether or not he support this fast food culture or how he thinks about this fast food culture. So in the first paragraph, it is very important to state your stance, okay? It's very important to state your stance at the very beginning of a letter to the editor. And then you will see that the next paragraph is the body paragraph. And after stating the stance, the writer is trying to present his or her arguments. So this is the second part of the letter to the editor. You will see that the writer is trying to give two more arguments to support his stance. Okay. So these two paragraphs are also the presentation of arguments. And then in the end, the last paragraph, obviously this is a conclusion. And in the conclusion, it's very important to restate the point of view. Because as I told you previously, in the letter to the editor, we're usually trying to argue about something. So it is very important to state the stance at the beginning and restate your point of view or your stance at the very end of the letter. Okay, so that's why you will see phrases like I believe, okay? It is having harmful effects on society as well. So the writer is trying to restate that he is really worried about the prevalence of fast food culture. He's really against this culture. And most importantly, you have to end your letter by writing yours faithfully and sign your name, okay? So this is a proper closing of a letter to the editor. After learning the structure or the format of letter to the editor, now let's look into the language features of a letter to the editor. So first of all, as I said, when you write a letter to the editor, you have to use a formal tone. And because at the very beginning, you have to state very clearly your purpose of writing. So you can make use of these sentence patterns to help you express clearly that why you're writing. So the most commonly used ones are, for example, this one, I'm writing to reply to or respond to or comment on someone else's letters, because sometimes you may write a letter to the editor to respond to someone else's letters. So then you can make use of this pattern, okay? And sometimes you may not be writing to respond to someone else's letters. You may just write because you want to express your concerns over a certain issue. Then you can make use of this pattern. I'm writing to express my opinion about something or my concern about something. Then you can state your purpose very clearly. So these two are the most commonly used patterns, and of course you can choose the other ones that we can see on the slide in your letter, depending on your purpose of writing. Then, because when writing a letter to the editor, usually you are trying to express your concern over a certain issue or you try to argue about a certain phenomenon. So it's very important for you to use some expressions for giving opinions. So these are some commonly used expressions we use when we give opinions. Like, in my opinion, in my view, from my point of view, or personally, I think, or my stance is that, my idea is that. So whenever you're trying to express your own opinion, your own feeling, your own point of view towards something, you can make use of these expressions. Sometimes you may want to persuade readers in your letter to the editor, and in that case, you might want to use phrases like, I believe that, I think that, I do not see anything wrong with something. By doing so, you can stress your point of view, you make your argument sound stronger. And you make your tones sound stronger as well. And sometimes you may want to counter argue with someone else's point of view in your letter. Then you can use even very strong expressions like, if such was the case, then something would happen. So these are some of the expressions that you can use when you're trying to argue something or when you're trying to persuade the readers to support your point of view, to believe in what you're trying to assert. As I've mentioned before, sometimes you write a letter to the editor because you want to respond to someone else's letters that have been published before. So you may want to agree or disagree with the content of that certain letter. So you may express whether you agree or disagree with someone else's opinions by using these expressions. Say, for example, when you agree with someone, you can say, oh, I'm in favor of someone else's point of view, or I completely support someone else's point of view. On the other hand, if you disagree with someone, you can say, I'm afraid I disagree with someone. I'm afraid I do not or cannot agree with someone. Now, the reason why you should add the word afraid is because you want to make yourself sound more polite. You don't want to make yourself sound so rude when you disagree with someone. But sometimes if you're really strong opinion about someone else's point of view, then you can use this very strong expression. I'm totally opposed to someone else's belief. But this is a very strong expression. So I don't recommend that you use it too often. Sometimes we may want to give suggestions, meaning that we would like to recommend ways to solve a problem after accounting for the reasons of it. So we may write something like, it may be a good idea to do something when we're trying to give suggestions, or we may say, my advice or recommendation would be doing something. Note that we have to use gerund here. Or we can also say, I highly suggest that, and then something could be done. So these are a few commonly used expressions for giving suggestions. Finally, conclusion of closing paragraphs. So of course you have to restate your point of view, and you want to express hope in the letter. You want to express that the government or the public will follow your recommendation, maybe. Okay, so you can use this expression, I hope this letter will encourage, okay, someone to do something. Okay, or you want to urge the government to do something at the end of the letter, so you can write, unless the government does something soon, or else something bad will happen. So these are very useful expressions for writing closing paragraphs. Now, after looking into the language features of a letter to the editor, now let's go back to our own writing task and brainstorm some ideas. So remember, our letter to the editor should be addressing the issue that there are fewer people going to cinemas before. So in our letter, we have to do two things. First of all, we explain why this phenomenon is happening, and we have to suggest what could be done to increase the number of moviegoers. Now, in the first part, which is this week's homework, you're going to focus on the first part. That is why fewer people are going to the cinemas. So before we start brainstorming, let's watch this video and see if you get some ideas from it.
When you look at the Oscar nominees of 2011, you gotta think it was a great year for movies.
Happy endings only happen in the movies.
The story's not over yet.
Wasn't it?
Wow. I know, right?
Not if you ask this guy.
I like reporting on the fun stuff. What I do is I track the box office. Every weekend, the box office derby is my thing.
Paul DeGarabedian is the number cruncher for Hollywood.com.
Last year, 2011, we saw the lowest attendance in 15 years.
15 years?
Yeah, in 15 years.
Let's go, kids.
The reasons could fill the seats of an empty movie theater.
Let's go see the movie.
The economy, that's one of the things I think that comes into play. When people are really having a hard time filling their wallet, you have to pick and choose what you're going to spend your money on.
In the pre-TV glory days, movies were just about the only choice. The thrill of shared emotions, fantasizing, dreaming with eyes open and hearts full. In fact, 1946, the year the best years of our lives came out, really was the best year ever for movies.
Hello, Homer. Hi, Steve. Boy, am I happy to see you back home again. Oh, go ahead, shake, pal. I won't bite you.
About 60% of Americans went to the theaters every week. Today, there are countless diversions. The crowds are smaller and very different.
The population that is going to movies less than they used to is clearly young men.
Sharon Waxman runs The Wrap, a must-read blog for Hollywood insiders.
Those people are now increasingly going to video games and spending time on YouTube and spending time on Facebook.
And like Jeremy Ramuto in Oxford, Mississippi, renting movies instead of buying tickets.
I think it's $8 for the movies, for one movie, and then it's $1.20 for one here. And then you're at the comfort of your own home. Especially if you got a big screen TV and surround, same thing.
Some theater owners have picked up on that and tried to bring the comforts of home and then some to the multiplex. iPic Entertainment VP Mark Mulcahy says attendance at his theaters was up in 2011.
Waiters and waitresses in the theater.
That's correct. They're actually trained to work in this dark environment. They're like ninjas.
But experts say what's served in seat counts less than what's showing on screens.
I think it ultimately comes back to the movie.
The quality of the movie.
The quality of the movie.
Joe Piccirillo is a former studio exec and independent producer. Today, he leads the undergraduate department of film and TV at New York University's Tisch School. He knows the first lesson of Hollywood.
Profit and successful box office trumps great reviews and Oscars all the time.
Yes, tonight's favorites made money. The Artist, $73 million. Hugo, $107 million. The Descendants, $144 million. But what brings in the big crowds and big money are the so-called tentpole movies, like Avatar, that draw men and women, kids and adults, and bring in over $300 million. In 2011, there were not enough blockbusters.
How could that be when you have a Harry Potter, a Pirates of the Caribbean, a Twilight, all released in the same year?
Because there were a lot of other movies in that vein that didn't work.
There were about four $300 million or more grossing movies in 2010. There were only 2 in 2011.
2. That makes...
It makes a difference.
Patrick Corcoran heads media and research at the National Association of Theater Owners.
It's essentially the product. I think that's what happens every year. It's whether we have an up year or a down year. It's always going to be about what's in the theaters themselves.
And here's the tricky part. What ends up in theaters today isn't necessarily dictated by the folks on Main Street, but by movie fans across the globe. Hollywood journalist Sharon Waxman.
We generally look at the domestic box office. That's also a fallacy because most of the money, 2/3 of the money, is now coming from international.
And earlier this month, a sign of the movie times, a deal to show more American movies in China, with consequences back home.
Subtitles are not the easiest thing for people to watch, so if the words aren't as important and the visuals are really driving it and the explosions, then that helps it overseas.
But wait a minute, stop the action, cut! Thanks to some new, popular films, plus mild weather, and whatever it is that movie marketers can't bottle, but worship.
We're way up. We're 18% ahead of last year at this time. So box office has been booming right now.
Maybe nothing has changed from silent movies to talkies.
Goodbye.
From black and white to color. Make a popular movie, and people like Veronica Torrey will come.
The movies is a great place to get away, go see a movie, especially after a hard week of class, and just come to the movie, get some popcorn, even though it is overly priced, but it's all right. Live it up for the weekend.
From the video, we may hear some people trying to analyze the reasons why there are fewer people going to cinemas. We may hear something like, because of the price of the cinema tickets, it's too expensive, and there are many cheaper alternatives like renting movies from vending machines or simply watching it at home on televisions. And some people also say that, oh, the quality of movies is declining. The quality of movies now is poorer than before. And some people also mentioned that because there are more entertainment options. Now we have Netflix, we have YouTube's, we have so many different entertainment options out there for we to choose from. So we don't have to go to cinema as the only way to entertain ourselves. So these are some of the reasons that you may write about in your own letter. So now let's start writing. Now here's the outline. First of all, you have to have a greeting. Okay, you have to introduce your purpose of writing, and you have to state your stance very clearly at the very beginning. So you should write, "Dear editor," and then you state your purpose of writing very clearly by writing, "I'm writing to express my great concern about something," and then you're going to give reasons, okay, in the next paragraph. Okay, it is suggested that you have to give 2 to 3 reasons to explain why there are fewer moviegoers with supporting details. Okay, each reason should be supported with details. And please make sure that you write one reason in one paragraph. Okay, so you separate different reasons with different paragraphs. Okay, so you may make use of these as this sentence as your topic sentence. There are many reasons explaining why fewer people go to cinemas than before. The first reason is that blah blah blah. Okay, and then after giving reasons for the declining number of moviegoers, then you try to give solutions to solve the problem. Again, you can use this as the topic sentence to tackle the problem. We have to face the fact, and first it is necessary to do something. And then again, you should give 2 to 3 suggestions, okay, so that you have enough words in your own essay. And then finally, you should have a conclusion, a closing paragraph. And this week's focus, okay, the focus of this week's some work, we're going to write the first 2 parts. That means the introduction and also the reasons for the declining number of moviegoers. So we have to explain why there are fewer moviegoers in Hong Kong now. So how to give reasons with supporting detail. So here is an example. So now let's say this is the structure of our second paragraph, which is the first reason for a declining number of moviegoers. Remember, you should write one reason in one paragraph. Okay, do not write so many reasons in one single paragraph. You have to separate different reasons with different paragraphs. So always remember, you should make use of the PEE techniques: point, explain, or reason, and an example. Okay, we can call PRE techniques as well. So you have to explain your main idea at the very beginning. Make it as your topic sentence. For example, you believe that the first reason why there are fewer people going to the cinemas, it's that watching movies is too expensive. So you can start by writing, oh, there are many reasons explaining why fewer people going to the cinemas than before. The first reason is that watching movies is too expensive. Then you can try to explain why expensive movie tickets is a problem to people, and why expensive movie tickets are causing fewer people to go to cinemas. So you can write something like this: nowadays watching movie can be luxury to some people because a movie ticket can simply cost 150 Hong Kong dollars, which is very expensive. Then you explain, oh, actually, because the movie tickets are so expensive, it is not easy for people to afford such expensive tickets. Now you can make use of these adjective patterns. It is adjective for somebody to do something. It is very useful when you're trying to give opinion. Okay, so and then you're trying to explain, oh, movie tickets are so expensive, and at the same time we have so many other choices that are much cheaper. For example, online movie watching, right? Then you can make use of this expression, on the contrary. That means on the other hand, okay, or conversely, online movie watching will not put any financial burden on people. It's so much cheaper. It's free. And then you can also explain a little bit more about these online movie watching options. For example, there are some websites that where people can watch movies for free, or there are also some applications. Now, when you're giving some examples, then when you're giving 2 examples at the same time, you can make use of this expression, not only but also. Okay, not only these websites but also the applications, that means the apps, okay, that can be installed into one gadget that makes online movie watching popular. Then you're giving 2 examples at the same time, and these 2 examples both make online movie watching very convenient. So that's why people do not want to spend money going to the cinemas anymore. And then of course you can enrich your content by giving more examples. You can quote your own personal experience as an example, or you can make use of your friend as friend's experience as an example. And of course you can make use of some news report or research as an example as well. So in the next paragraph, you do the same thing. Again, PEE or PRE. So you give the second reason why there are fewer people going to the cinema. But this time, you don't have to begin your paragraph by saying, oh, there are many reasons. Okay, that is redundant. You simply go straight to the point by writing the second reason causing the declining number of moviegoers is that, okay? Then maybe you can say the second reason is the quality of movies is declining, it's getting lower and lower. The movies nowadays are not as well made as before. So again, you can make use of these sentence patterns to help you explain the ideas why poorer movie quality will discourage people to go to cinemas. And then you can give some examples of very low quality movie that you have seen before. So this can help you further explain your ideas. Then you repeat the process in writing your third reason of declining number of moviegoers, and then you finish this weekend's homework. Now, here are some user expressions for writing this task. You may have a look of it. These expressions are all written in the writing booklet, so you can have a look in your writing booklet and learn how to use them. So again, for this week's homework, you're going to write the first part of the letter. That means the introduction and also the reasons for fewer moviegoers. Remember to write 2 to 3 reasons with supporting details, okay? And you're supposed to submit to your teachers by Friday. That means the 10th of April. And remember, you have to write about 250 words. So good luck with your homework. That is the end of this video.